Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever and whenever you are. I am Rune from Rune'sGuild, and this is another episode of RPG Horror Story. We are going to be reading just one story again today, and this one is about a player. Based on the title, I haven't read much of it, only the first line, but based on the title, a player is proud that they are going to be going to jail, or at least they're proud that they might be going to jail, and then they end up indeed going to jail. So if you are somewhat uncomfortable with criminal things, criminal conduct, and all that, you might want to steer away from this one. I haven't read the story, so I don't quite know what it is. I only have the warning from the OP, which is just, do not read if you are uncomfortable with criminal conduct. So, no idea what's going on here. If it's something crazy, I'll probably add another disclaimer when I'm done reading it. Hi, this has sexual themes involving children, so don't watch if you're not comfortable with that. But anyways, before I get past a minute, oh no, here it comes. Before I get past 2 minutes with an introduction, let's go ahead and roll the post. Welcome to the World of Darkness Revised Edition. The stage. We were a group of about 5 players, not including me, the DM. We were all between 30 and 20. Due to branching narrative in our VTM game, we decided to allow an additional player to the group, and occasionally split the group so they could do what they aim to do without being outnumbered. The game itself pits our group, a coterie of kindred, against a conspiracy aiming at cleaning the city of Los Angeles of all vampiric presence. And let's be honest, they're doing it quite well. Among my 6 players, we have our problem player. Let's call him Felix, because F you, Felix of the 6th grade. Rip Felix, I guess. I swear my grudge against Felix from the 6th grade will have no incidence on my retelling of this story. Now, all my players are from different clans, except twins that were embraced by the same sire, who, in his crazed state, did not realize that he hardly went through the embrace and just, well, made a mistake. For those who are not aware, the setting of World of Darkness is pretty easy to follow. You take the modern world, pre-2000 for this game, and you crank up the terribleness to overdrive. And I mean, there are unpleasant events for everyone. And for that, I made sure to have everyone sign a safety form. Out of this form, with about 30 to 40 items, only 5 things were outlawed. Explicit sex content, overt abuse of children, referring to violence, no torture, meaning no session where the players or the DM would go overboard and explain what the character is experimenting, no NSFW visual support, and no spiders. We also agreed on recording our conversation for referencing. We have addressed a lot of issues in this game, and by that I mean every one of my players saw sexism, LGBTQ+ issues, racism, discrimination, elderly abuse, child abuse, cover-ups, fraud, hate crimes. We went into a lot of dark places, which turned their characters from rather optimistic neonates in the 50s to hardened monsters. The characters, not the players. In the 90s, except for the dang Toreador. That one was a tough cookie, emotionally. I am mentioning these topics so you understand. None of us were thin-skinned. We were aware we were playing a horror game with very dark themes. Felix was a new addition to the game and was invited by a friend of mine, one of the younger members of the group. Felix was apparently relatively experienced with the game, so I wouldn't have to go over the rules with him. I thought, neat, new player, time to up the difficulty a notch. Because I am, for all good fun, but I am also against making everything a cakewalk. Felix's character was not that original, but I kept it to myself. He wanted to play a risky character to play, so he decided to be a child vampire. He was a Bruya-born caitiff and a powerful user of the Dominate discipline. In VTM, this is a bad idea both for the new vampire and his sire, because this could mean their death. Child vampires are killed without so much as a trial by the Camarilla agents, and their sires are executed, due to the risks being for the masquerade. Everything went well for the first few games, but something struck me as wrong with Felix. namely the fact that he insisted on describing the reactions of his feeding victims to his bite, which were inappropriate. In VTM, the kiss, or bloodsucking, is a very intense experience, but it is only described so because of the mechanic that makes an NPC unable to defend himself while being fed on. Now, it is important for me to establish that most of the role-playing was done through text, with battles and discussions sometimes being made in the VC to speed them up and to avoid spending 5 hours on a short thing. I could therefore not stop players mid-sentence if something uncomfortable was happening. I will spare you the details, but once emboldened, Felix would describe inappropriate acts. While we did agree that his vampire is rather old, about 100 years. Child vampires are actually stuck in their childlike mentality as stated by the rules. They do not evolve in the same way adult vampires can, and while they are able to learn, they keep a certain innocence to their actions. They accidentally kill a human, they freak out. Someone talks to them a bit too loud, they freak out. They also have higher difficulties in situations where their self-control is the main criteria to avoid a disastrous situation. The way Felix played his vampire was pretty much a 6-year-old with the hormonal state of a teenager and, insert shudder, actual sex drive. Vampires do not get sex drive in this game. Humans do because they have hormones. Vampires can use the sex to get what they want, namely blood or favors, but they derive little pleasure from it. The first time, it was merely something along the lines of him sitting in his victim's lap. This made me, a hardcore horror movie fan, uncomfortable. I don't want my players or me to be exposed to that, and neither did the other players, so I made it very clear. Buddy, your character is a kid, don't do that. You are a wrist feeder, that's it. The second time was where I drew the line. I didn't want to let it go any further. He made his character to take his victim into a room. I stopped him mid-track and told him no, he will not, and because I objected, he then proceeded to post a massive text describing in length something that could only be described and qualified as child pornography, which he prepared in advance because he posted it in under 5 seconds. And I said, nope, nope, I refuse, denied, not authorized, prohibited action. That guy had the audacity to try to defend what he was doing. Children are also curious about naughty things. When I was a kid, I let you imagine the rest. I was fuming and was getting very nervous at panicked messages from my players who saw this turning into a Crit Crab Din of the Drake, Crispy's Tavern worthy shit show. Hopefully eventually that'll be a Rune'sGuild worthy shit show as well. I said, I don't want to hear your justification. Whatever the hell you thought would make this okay is not. This is what you have sent us, is illegal, it is a crime. He said with a very smug tone, well, I guess I'm going to jail. I consequently banned him and informed his friend, the other player, who was themselves very distraught over what they had just witnessed, that I was unsure of how to address this and we needed to forward this to the proper authorities, because I was very concerned. This guy had displayed such disregard for what he did that I was afraid that he did not just write this, but maybe he might have very deep issues that need to be addressed before someone suffers from this. Well, we were all extremely shocked by what we saw and read against our will, so let's say someone suffers more. I went to the police, since they lived in the same town, with a transcript of the conversation I had recorded and informed them of all we had just experienced. The police officer who met with me took the case seriously and informed me that he will look into the matter and will get a warrant. I was later informed that the case actually ended up in court and Felix is now in jail. As an update, just to let everybody know, for those who want more detail in regards to the police events, I heard secondhand that Felix was less than cooperative during the acquisition of the laptop he used. When he understood the police was there for his computer, he snatched it and tried to destroy it, assaulted the officer and resist arrest, among other things. I was not there, so this is hearsay. The full charges brought against him were not provided to me. Alright, I didn't know it was going to take a turn like that, and I'm glad it wasn't as explicit as it could have been, so that's nice. But that is... wow. This is why honestly, I don't even know what to say here. This is just so gnarly. This is a weird story. I can't even imagine what it would be like to just be playing to mind your own business. I mean, sure, it's a tough world, you know, like, that's fine. But I guess it goes back to what I always say. Why can you not escape stuff like this and fantasy? Like, why does fantasy always end up with people being like, oh, it's fantasy, that means I can have a child, and just other stuff like that. It's so cringy and stupid. It's like, why can't we have fantasy and dark fantasy without situations like this? The OP was doing a good job of it. The OP was explaining that they experienced racism, they experienced LGBTQ plus issues, they experienced all that other things the OP was saying, but managed to avoid this topic, it seemed. At least that's what I read it as. And I can't understand why people cannot just separate these two things. Why does dark fantasy or fantasy in general have to come with SA, with child sex abuse, with stuff like that? Why does it have to come together? Why can it just not happen? And I don't know, it always annoys me, and I don't understand it at all. And it's one of those things that I will die at the top of this hill gladly for. If you cannot write dark fantasy or any dark setting or any setting whatsoever, if you cannot write, create, do anything, whether that's D&D, a story, a video game, a TV show, if you cannot create something with this setting in any way without including that, stop. You don't deserve to. You're not good enough. That's all I have to say about that. I guess that's really all I have to say about this entire this story. So if you enjoyed, leave me a like, leave me a sub, leave me a comment. You don't have to. If you have anything you want to say, like your own horror stories, leave it in the comments below. If you don't have a horror story, good job. And if you can't think of a comment to say, go ahead and just say something along the lines of, well, he did end up going to jail. Thank you for watching, and I will see all of you in the next video. Bye.